Hey, how are you? Y'all doing all right?
Good.
I'm doing good. You doing?
I'm all right. How about yourself?
Good.
Ah. We've got about a minute to 12, so if you could, Miss Charlotte, if you'd say a prayer for us, and Michael LaFleur could lead us in the pledge.
Please pray with me. Our most gracious, loving Father, we ask that you would be with us as we meet today. Thank you for the privilege of meeting. We pray for our commissioners, that you would give them wisdom in the decisions they have to make. Pray for Commissioner Langston, that he will have a quick recovery. We ask that you watch over our military wherever they may be serving and be with us as we go through this day. Please forgive us when we fail you. For these things we ask in your most holy name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, I'd like to call the regular public meeting of the Board of City Commissioners to order. And we'll get started with the consent agenda, which is approval of minutes from the regular meeting 9/21 and special meeting of 9/21. Does everyone have time to review the minutes? So I'll entertain a motion. So have a motion by Commissioner Hoffman. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Commissioner Lowry. Any opposition? Hearing none, motion passes. Next up, our city engineer. Is he here today? There you go.
Afternoon, I'm Caleb Brown, I'm filling in for Josh today. The Maddox Park gazebo is currently out for bid. Bid should be received on the 29th. The Long Avenue Sewer and First Street Lift Station is under construction with the next project, update for Friday, progress report. And both the First Street resurfacing job and Clifton Sims Park are still currently in design. With the resurfacing job, I'm working on the 60% plan set right now. That's all I have, unless y'all have any questions.
Anybody have any questions for the engineer?
I had one question. At our last meeting, we asked the engineer to look at a particular issue with water that's holding up behind the gym there at Peters Park. And there was some flooding and there's a pipe that's gonna be researched to find out if we can get permission from the railroad company to put a new pipe in or repair it. And I know you probably don't know the answer to this,
Yes,
but if you would just take it back and bring that up.
I sure will.
Thank you.
Anybody has?
That's all I have.
Thank you, sir. All right, let's see here. On to our city attorney.
Yes, Commissioner, I have only one item on the agenda today, and that's ordinance 596 dealing with commission compensation. I need you to call for any public hearing, a motion for a first reading, and request to advertise.
Okay, so at this time we'll open public hearing for ordinance 596. We'll start with discussion amongst the board first. Are there any questions or discussions on this ordinance?
I'd like to speak on it. The idea behind this is several years past, in the past, the commissioners that were serving at the time decided that it was time for a pay increase for the commissioners. I felt like the process that was followed could have been done better. I think instead of just a one-time jump to the current salary of $1,000 a month, that it probably would have been a smarter approach to do it in increments. But I wasn't there, so I'm just giving you my feelings on it. But the idea behind this is if we don't do something now, 10 years from now, 15 years from now, whoever happens to be sitting here is going to be faced with the same situation. Catch up to a fair and equitable compensation for being a commissioner. So my idea is tie it to a fair cost of living, and each year it increases. The other part, you've heard me say over and over again, I want to encourage people to be involved, to run for these positions. One thing we did several months back was we reduced and gave the ability to get signatures for people to run. And that was an idea, again, to encourage people to run. So the idea of this ordinance is to give, if the city employees receive a 3% pay raise, then the commissioners would receive that. If they didn't receive anything when times are tight, then you wouldn't receive the increase. That's the background. And I just think that it needs to be discussed. It needs to be brought up. The public needs to have an opportunity to speak on it. And I just think that that's a wise thing to do for the future of the compensation for these positions.
And I believe you're absolutely right, Commissioner. We could have avoided the meeting 4 or 5 years ago. Brett, you were part of that as well. And it was tough. That was tripling our pay at one time. And that was a difficult thing to do. In fact, the way that I voted wasn't against it. It was a vote against us giving ourselves a raise. But I think this is very small, and this is fixing it going forward. And I support that 100%. Commissioner Lowry, anything?
I'm good.
All right, we'll open it up to the public. Any public discussion on this ordinance?
Yes.
Come forward, write your name and.
Christy McElroy, Fort St. Joe. Do you gentlemen get insurance?
We do, yes.
You
ma'am.
get benefits?
We do have insurance, yes. ma'am.
And if you've worked for a government or anything like that, and you go into retirement, does this tack on to your retirement if you are, say, say, for instance, once upon a time you were a city employee for 20 years, and then you stopped, and then you became a city commissioner. Does that not add in to retirement?
I would have to ask Jim specifically that question. I believe it would.
It does.
I believe it would add to that. Yes, ma'am.
So those are incredible benefits that a lot of people don't get at all. Insurance itself, that's one of the problems with the low wage worker, is they can't even afford insurance. You talk a lot about housing, but insurance, that is a big parachute. So with all due respect, commissioners, I think it doesn't matter what the employees get year to year. You sign up to be a public servant. And this isn't supposed to be a full-time job for 20 years. You're supposed to service the public and help all the public, not just a certain sect. And based off of that, and what you already did, I think it was 3 years ago.
Just
With,
prior to the storm, I believe, yes.
yeah, with increasing your pay, I think it's premature to even change that. The other thing that I would ask is you look at other municipalities that are about the same size, that have the same budgets, because you want to attract the brightest and the best for your city employees. If you're taking part, then it's something taking away from a city employee. And we can always use more city employees. We just lost employees to the county. So I caution you, not that I don't agree that you get late night calls, etc., but you pretty much sign up for it. And you did do the situation with the signatures. But when you increased the pay, you also increased the application fee to run, just to run. So we need to look at both sides of the coin, and I appreciate your indulgence.
Thank you. Any other public comment? All right, all that being said, I'll entertain a motion to either table or go forward or wherever we wish to do with it.
Motion to approve.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any opposition to the motion? Hearing none, motion passes. I guess go ahead and advertise, Mr. Attorney.
Ordinance number 596, an ordinance of the city of Port St. Joe, Florida, repealing and replacing ordinance number 541 of the city of Port St. Joe, dealing with compensation of city commissioners and mayor commissioners, providing for repeal of all ordinance or parts of ordinance in conflict herewith, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date. That's all that I had.
All right, moving along. I believe, Jim, you're up.
So the first item we have is city projects. You'll turn to 8 and 9. You'll see the projects that we're currently working on across the city. Got any questions? I'm happy to answer for you.
Any questions about the projects?
Is the crosswalk lights on here? Is it on there?
I believe they are complete.
And, well, I was gonna say, what's the status on that?
They should be complete.
Should be complete. They were working on it.
I don't, whether, I can't recall if they're on the list or not.
Okay, I saw an elderly couple stand there and it looked like they were trying to activate the lights and they were not activated, but that might have been right before the electrician did.
It could have been, because they were up for a few, we had them installed for a few weeks before he was able to get to it because of the weather.
I seen them flashing the other day.
Oh, you did?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
okay,
it.
okay. That's all
I
I
wasn't
want.
sure.
That's fine, thank you.
All right.
Okay, the next thing is COVID-19 update. Mayor Bizet's not available today for us, but our numbers are around 7% now, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, here in Gulf County. So
Yeah, they were
numbers are coming down.
7.33 and 52% of the people are vaccinated now. So we're moving in the right direction, but still 20% below the state average. So we're getting there.
Absolutely. So we're trending in the right direction, Palmer. And we've opened back up our rentals too. More than 15. The last time I have under old business purchasing policy. Right now, the current policy with the city is anything over $10,000 has to be bid out. I believe the state statute is $250,000. We're not asking to get nowhere near that, but with everything going up in price and all the little projects we got going on, it would be nice if staff had the ability to go up to 25,000 before bringing it to you to go out and bid on there. That would enable us to take care of some of this small projects, just for consideration.
What amount did you say, Jim?
25,000 is what we proposed there. Currently it's 10, so that would get us to do some of the smaller projects.
What are the legal pros and cons on that from the attorney? What do you think?
As Jim stated, the statute in the state of Florida states that a municipality can have a bidding at a level of $250,000. It's still way underneath that.
Yeah.
And I don't see any legal problems with it at all. It's given the height, the inflationary aspects of getting materials and stuff like that. It just makes it really hard that every little single thing comes in front of the board. So I don't see a problem with it at all.
And this would be done by ordinance, by, what do we have to
It's
change?
just the policy.
Just a policy is all.
You will be approving the purchasing policy for the city of Port St. Joe, increasing those limits. It's the same policy, but what you'll see is there the limits of each other.
Any discussion amongst the board?
Just quick, I don't disagree. I mean, when you have projects going on and the issue, I know one issue, major issue, I think everyone is having is getting materials and ordering them. And it takes time. So, or the fact that if they can, make a move on a purchase right away and not slow a project down, that's kind of my take on it. So, I'm all for moving it up, under $15,000.
Okay. Commissioner Hoffman, you have any thoughts?
Well, my first question was to the attorney, what does the statute say? I also asked, what does the county I wanted to compare the city spending and budget to the county. The county is at a 50,000, and that made me feel a little better if we stay at 25, so I have no problem with it.
How do we move forward with this?
We need approval.
A motion.
You just need a motion to approve it and then it's done. All right, I'll entertain a
Motion
motion.
to approve.
Got a motion from Commissioner Hoffman, do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Commissioner Lowry, any opposition? Motion passes 3-0. All right.
The next item we have is in reference to employee jackets. Winter's come, it's fast approaching, something we've talked about in the last couple of years, and Commissioner Hoffman wanted to talk to you today about it.
I was asked by Public Works Director if it was a good idea, and I said, yeah. And he has some brass that he can surplus, so there's no cost whatsoever to the employees or to the city of St. Joe. At first, I thought it was just enough brass to buy jackets for his crew, and then I found out, no, it's, he can actually buy brass for the other departments and employees, so I support it.
As well as the police department.
Oh, and the police department. Okay, great. So, yeah, I'm 100% on board. Let's get it done.
And they will have the city badge on there, so they're easily identifiable for people, because a lot of times too, in our wintertime, the guys bring their own personal jackets and stuff. If somebody can free your house, you'll be able to easily identify with the city logo.
Any further discussion on it? I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
All right, I have a motion, do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right, any opposition? Motion passes 3-0. Next up.
The next item we have is the CDBG CV application. This is another phase of the Community Development Block Grant. This is actually dealing with COVID. We had a brief discussion in our last meeting with some ideas about sports complex, splash pad to downtown entertainment areas for outdoor seating to even stage. Our grant writer had a discussion with DEO, and what they came back and said is they're not sure what's going to qualify because our whole town is not 51% or more low to moderate income. I got another conference call scheduled for tomorrow to get some clarification on there. We're at about 36 to 37% LMI within the city of Fort St. Joe, which is high. But from what they're saying is, if you do these kind of things and it's open to all of the public on there, you're not going to qualify. So I want some clarification. I'm going to sit here and meeting with them tomorrow, so I get some more clarification. But it sounds like it's going to be very hard to get these grants.
I seen the email and it's like, what can we do? You know?
That's the question.
We're qualified.
So,
I'm thinking how many cities in the state of Florida have a higher LMI rating than we do, if it's over 50-something%, there must be a community with absolutely no industry or no business. I don't know. So I'll see what I can find out.
All right, thank you.
The next item, Commissioner Langston is under the weather today, but he was wanting to talk about the cemetery itself. One thing that we've reiterated to folks is please adhere to the 8 inches below grade whenever you're having a funeral for a loved one. With that in mind, I think that'll take care of a lot of the probably one of the spirits that we're encountering with the cemetery.
Jim, being that that's private property, is there any way for us to enforce that rule so we don't have these problems come up?
We do have, is it by resolution?
I believe.
We have an ordinance in place that outlines all the rules and regulations, so I believe what that would fall under code enforcement. So I think what you could do hypothetically, you could say that somebody has a code violation on that private property, couldn't we, if we really wanted to?
Correct, or we could add into the deed when the plot is sold, that they have to do that.
As a plot is purchased, they are provided that information when their deed and letter is mailed to them. So each family that purchases one has all the information. And it's spelled out very clearly in there.
Is it possible that the issues that we're experiencing are due to weather and just conditions and age? Or is it people doing it improperly?
Some of the families did not want to do that, and they directed their funeral home director apparently to leave the top of the vault as the slab rather than put it 8 inches below, and that's what's happening.
Oh,
So they need to adhere to that.
all right. Any other discussion on the cemetery?
I have a question. Do I need to wait till citizens?
Come on up, sir. We can hear. Can't hear you.
I was just making sure I could say it now instead of waiting for citizens to be heard. Anyway, I'm in the fields. In the cemetery situation, when I went out there, you know, I'm not an engineer. Okay? It's been a lot of rain. But what I noticed, even with the plots, I guess the actual grave is the private cemetery part. Okay, the one vault that I saw, this was so long ago, I don't even know where a policy or anything was in place at that time, the way that vault looked. The other thing is when I went out there, I'm thinking it was a 1 month problem. Then after I kept looking into it, it turned into a 6 month problem that was there. Then it turned into almost way back to 2009. Now, like I said, the rain is everything. When you look at the property though, some is up, some is low, some is sloping. It's nothing you can do way back where some of these problems were taken care of. I would look at what Holy Hill also. And the difference that I know in Holy Hill, everything is built up, the roads are low. As far as Hill, the roads are low and everything is lower. And what I noticed is slopes like this. So anytime it's rain, like it's raining now, that water's gonna sit there. When I looked at it, my main concern at the time was at least pump the water off the graves, so at least I can see who grave it is. Maybe I can contact those people and let them know, you need to do something. They need to do something if it's their property. But as far as property overall, is it the city, is it the county? Because I noticed some dirt out there, it's been there a while. At least put the dirt somewhere in the part that's not the person's property. Put that in there, and I think that'll soak up some of that rain and start alleviating some of the problem. And some of the problem where I see where they finna cross this last street, I don't know the name of it, but they're putting some graves there. And what I definitely see, all that back to that fence is starting getting ahead of the game. Let's put some dirt in there, at least get that started. Because the problem that you have now, you're gonna continue to have that problem as long as it rains. You need to definitely somebody check it and pump the water off. I noticed when I was out there, they was cutting the grass, and prior to, I went out to check my mom and dad's grave, take some flowers off. It wasn't like that, but it was good to see that they was out there cutting that problem, and it looked a lot better. And when I went back to, all of a sudden the water was gone. I said, there's no way in the world that water evaporated that fast. But to close this off, at this point now, I think some dirt need to put in there. I don't know about putting the graves up or whatever. I don't know what to do about that particular one, since you've been trying to contact the family. But to me, in my mind, there's no way in the world I would want my family member with that vault open about that far. When I looked in it, I could see water in the vault. I could see lizards swimming around. I could see frogs swimming around and minnows. And me, in my mind, what if that was my family member? And see, me, in my mind, after a while, when I'm looking at this, it gave me the creeps. You know, you start thinking about these movies and everything. I'm like, wait a minute, I don't want to go there. That's what made me ride around and start to look. So that's my concern. I just hope something can be done to alleviate this problem. Thank you.
Great. And staff, your concern is that's private property. There's really not a lot we can adjust on our end. Is that correct?
We feel that, the one that does have the problem was, like Mr. Fields said, was probably done years and years ago before the current policy on there. So I think the policy itself will keep the major problems.
Mr. Fields, if we got you the name of who owned the land?
I've already contacted them,
done
sir. The family and I are working together
Okay.
on this. They've called me several times lately, reaching out to the funeral home. They have been very eager to take care of it. It's a relative, not a direct descendant, and they have been very gracious in it. The Holly Hill Cemetery, we have a section that has water standing, but we have been inundated with water lately, and we can't control that.
Yeah.
But the family is very aware of it and working with us, usually a couple calls a week.
Great, excellent. Mr. Fields? Good with that? I mean, we've already contacted the family.
Me, if some progress is being made to alleviate that problem, me, let's say, if I'm not that, thank God, my mom and dad and my sister was up on the higher end. You know, the dirt is up. Over there in that area, the dirt is up, but that grave just pop. Okay, and you know, the funeral director, family member, somebody, because it's raining now. I'm sure water going in that grave because it's still open about that far, at least about 3 inches. And who actually responsibility is that? The funeral director, the family, who actually take care of that?
The family purchases the plot. It is their private property when they purchase it. We give them the ordinance and the restrictions for the cemetery. So they are well aware of it. We send the ordinance to all the funeral homes in this area and one from Georgia that does work down here. Each time we have a change, we notify them of our changes. So they are also well aware of it.
Very good, very good. One last thing, I just thought about this right there is, Mr. McNair just passed away. He was a veteran and he's 102 years old. He will be buried with possibly, I'm not sure, all foundation, he will possibly be buried in that cemetery. While I was out there, I also looked up at that flag. Please, even if I have to purchase the flag, let's put a new flag. That flag was ripped apart just like it's been on a war. And first thing I thought about, we're not in Vietnam, so we can do that.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Got any extra flags, John? Got it. All right, moving on.
The next item is PSJRA meeting. We'll call a couple meetings back. This board actually called for a meeting on 10/19 at 11 o'clock.
Okay.
And the last item I have under new business is the PDRB membership. We do have one member, that's actually coming up for, her term is actually ending, it's up for renewal consideration of the board, Ms. Lisa Matthews, and you can talk about her, she would like to serve another term if it's.
How do y'all feel about leaving things the way they are?
Yeah, good.
You good with that, Commissioner?
Need a
Yeah.
motion?
Yeah, we'll go for it.
So moved.
All right, have a motion, need a second? Second. Any opposition? Motion passes 3-0 to keep the board the same.
I did leave one item off, the legislative request for this year is still an 11-1, it's a typo there, it's a 10-1. We did throw out a couple of ideas out, but we need some directions on the board as to move forward on it. I think a couple of things that people talked about was splash pad, playground equipment, something along those lines. So whatever y'all feel is appropriate, we'll try to get an application in, we just don't have a lot of time.
Discussion.
Would it be permissible to ask for funding for Core Park area to include the amphitheater, the bathrooms, and possibly a splash pad? Because we agreed as a commission, y'all correct me if I'm misspeaking, but I believe we agreed we would build a bathroom first. And then we would look at building an amphitheater or a stage. And then when those two things were done and completed, we would seek funding for a splash pad. But I don't think that would preclude us from asking for money for the improvement of Core Park, with the understanding that's how the money would be spent.
Because we looked at the restroom, and initially we were gonna put it down in Maddox Park, we found out that now with new floodplain management rules and regs, it's gonna have to be up towards the road, so.
Right.
That's wish of the board, let us know, we'll throw an application.
I just don't want to have events and have a stage and bring 3,000 or 4,000 people there, and we have no restrooms, no facilities. To me, that's
And
backwards.
we have another event this Saturday in the park, so it's being used again quite a bit, so they have a music festival this weekend in there, but there's not a stage, so what they're having to do is bring in and pay for a rental on the stage on there, so if it's the wish of the board, y'all let us know if you want
That has been the top discussion item at downtown redevelopment meetings for a while. I'm comfortable going that route, just make it generic, Core Park improvements.
Well, I think you probably need to identify what you want on that, but I think you could do all three if you wanted to. You know, I have no idea how much money the legislature's gonna put in for appropriation this year, but
The state of Florida is gonna have one of the biggest surplus of funding that they've had in, I would gather to say, probably 40 years, maybe longer. And it's based mainly because the deal that they have worked out with the Seminole tribe, I think it was $2.5 billion over a period of time. So we need to be ahead of the game. The state agencies are already asking for money like I've never seen in my 35 years of dealing with budgets in the state. The amount of money that they are individually asking for is crazy money. So I think we need to be asking for some of that crazy money too.
can we get that in the form of a motion to give us some directions?
I'll make the motion that we identify Core Park and the 3 areas of Core Park in the order that we previously discussed, and that we ask for a minimum of $400,000.
All right, we have a motion. We have a second.
I'm good with that.
All right.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any opposition? Motion passes 3-0. There was one more item, Jim.
Yes, sir.
Everyone's got in front of them a letter of support that the county wrote to Pioneer Bay CDC. And I was asking the board for permission today to do a similar, actually exactly the same letter, but changing out Gulf County and making it Port St. Joe. Is there anyone here that can speak on exactly the program? Chester, are you up to date on this?
Yeah.
Want to come up to the mic?
The letter that we were requesting was a letter of support based upon some grants that the Pioneer Bay CDC is requesting. And so usually when you put in for a grant, they ask for letters of support so that the community will be in agreement with what that grant is for. And so the grant is for the CDC to have further gains for keeping their building alive and some employees that are working there, but mainly the food program that they have going right now and the community garden program. So they're seeking funds to get that done, and they need, recommendations from the city or support from the city, not only just the city itself, but for other people that will support that issues.
Now, this letter that I have here, Pastor Davis says that it's for job training.
Right,
So it's going to help train.
right.
And
right,
it's going to help people at the sewer plant, from what I understand, be pre-trained right out of high school for those types of jobs.
All of those things are included in that particular grant because actually it's for the community service.
Right.
It's community service grant.
Any questions about the letter of support?
Need a motion?
Yeah, it doesn't cost us any money. It's just to help bring jobs, not jobs, but job training to town.
So move, draft a letter,
All right.
support.
Second.
Based upon that also, we just got
Just 1 second, let's vote on it.
okay.
Any opposition? All right, motion passes 3-0. Go ahead, sir.
Okay, we had just got a letter from Eastern Shipbuilding and we supposed to put out some posters. They're seeking some help from some people that are applying for jobs and training. And so that's on the board for this week. And so we're hoping that the Pioneer Bay will take the lead on that based upon that grant, even though the grant will come later, we still want to be able to apply those posters out so the people in the city, not just North Port St. Joe, but the city, will be able to see those posters and for job training.
Good deal. All right, thanks, sir. All right, next up is Public Works, request to purchase a truck.
I do, Mayor, thank you very much, actually, and commissioners. This is actually sort of compounded a little bit in the last few days. There are actually 5 vehicles that we budgeted through the process this past year. And the reason they're all landing right here, right now is because the auto manufacturers are about to cease production. They're no longer gonna be taking orders in the middle of the month, so if you don't get this in, you won't get one. So what we've asked is, we put together the actual costs. We were able to get those off state contract at Sourcewell, so you see those versus our budget cost on the front sheet that Mr. Anderson put together. Obviously, a budget's just the best guess at the time, and with the given the material expense and cost, it's increased. So we're over what we anticipated paying in the budget, but I do believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Anderson, that that's covered, that those funds are available in the budget.
What we have to do is pull it from another line item, but yes, we have extra money to cover these costs. Like I said, it's just an estimate on there, and these would all be purchased under state contract on there.
So if it's the board's desire for us to go ahead and place these orders, and some of these vehicles, quite honestly, they're gonna be 6 months out. I mean, we won't see these till the middle of next year. But at least if we get our name in the hat, we know that Ford will be producing these for the city of Fort St. Joe.
Are these for towing heavy equipment? Is that what this one is that I'm looking at?
The 1350 is exactly, that's correct.
What this is covered is a code enforcement vehicle. If you've seen the code, it was a hand-me-down from the police department that's on its last leg. Then you have one for the water plant, one for the wastewater plant. These are just regular trucks. And then you have a heavy-duty truck for pulling in wastewater, and then a bucket truck. Our bucket truck is what year, John?
1994.
It's old. So that's the request there.
When you say the money will come out of another line item, is it a line item in each department?
Yes, it would come specifically out of that department itself on there, but we'll give Mr. McClure and figure out which is the appropriate one, depending on, there's not much. Most of these, you look at them, like the one is 24,000, budgeted 26, so about $2,000 will have to go.
Oh, okay.
The most expensive one's the bucket truck. It was over the most. So we can find that.
Probably materials and supplies or something.
So they're just moving some of their money from their
It's still
department.
gonna come out of each department. Each department
Yeah,
is responsible
yeah.
for maintaining that budget.
Yeah, I support that. I'll put that in motion.
All right, we have a motion, do we have a second?
I'll say.
Any opposition? Motion passes 3-0. All right.
There, that's all I have unless there's questions for me.
Any questions for John? Moving on to not Larry. Do we have an update with Larry or with Kevin? Jim?
They are both running the plants. Larry is shorthanded, so he's there, and he does have a window employee that moved over that he got from Mr. Grant's shop, so he's out training today, so Larry's sitting inside running the plant. And Kevin Pettis is also running the plant today as well, so busy day at the plant.
We will move on to finance. Like you got a few things on there today.
I don't have the list. Sorry. All right, yes, the FERDAP committee, yes. So we have the ability to apply for one more FERDAP grant. The current grant cycle is through October 15th. And the current grant structure is $50,000, 100% state share, from $50,000 to $150,000 grant, a 75% state share. So, and then above 150 is a 50-50 split on those grants. The FERDAP committee met yesterday. We had 9 members on that committee. We had 5, so we had a quorum. And their big thing was, as we've discussed, a splash pad. But FERDAP doesn't have a splash pad element available in that grant. But that was certainly a top priority of the FERDAP committee. They would love to see a splash pad in the community. The second major topic for them was sports complex improvements to 10th Street or to developing a sports complex with the 60 acres that we have. That was the other top priority. But then we tried to focus on what could we do with the grants for this cycle. And their recommendation was to replace an old damaged playground at Washington Gym. They have a new playground in front of the gym, but as you go out the gym to the left, there's an old one there that is in poor condition. John, after the storm, got some repair parts and made it safe, but it probably needs to go.
It really does.
And so that brought up the question of, well, what kind of playground could you put for $50,000? Not very much. You couldn't put a large playground for that kind of money. But certainly we could put a small one there, but it'd be the same as what was in front of the gym. So that was the top item. And then the second item that they had was improvements to the 10th Street playground and the outdoor basketball court behind the Stackhouse. They said that basketball court probably gets more activity than any facility in the city. It's for the kids after school and so forth. So that the improvement for the playground at 10th Street would simply to put a sail or some sort of shade over that playground. And the same concept of basketball court. But again, you're not gonna be able to cover that basketball court with $50,000. You know, you would need $150,000 to cover that basketball court and to make improvements to the shade. So that were the two items that they focused on, was the replacement of the playground at Washington Gym and improvements to that outdoor basketball court and shade over that outdoor playground by 10th Street.
What was their input on how much money would the city go after? The free money or bump it up? And I want to make sure I heard you right. Did you say if you go with 50,000 to 75,000, the city would pay 25%?
No, it's 50 to 150. So if you got 150,000 grant, you'd have to come up with $37,000.
37,000.
So that would be ideal, but for us to say, let's go for a big playground, or let's go for putting a roof over that basketball court and come up with the $37,000 out of our escrow fund or something, because we only budgeted $50,000 in revenue and $50,000 in expense in the budget. Yeah, we budgeted the 100%. You know.
Mike, so when we apply, and if we receive the grant, when do we
It would be,
expect?
it would
This
be-
year?
It would be
budget
this
year?
time next year that we would
Okay,
we would have found out in July or August, and then getting approval to move forward in October. Like right now, for the two $50,000 grants that we're about to discuss, we've gotten approval from the state, we've gotten confirmation we have the money, we haven't got the commencement letter back from them yet. So about this time next year, we would be moving forward to make those improvements to either one of those two facilities.
so my question in that was, we can commit to it based on budgeting for it next year.
That's true.
You can go ahead and put your application in, if you get approved, your budget for next year, you can make that decision, okay, this is how much.
Well, in my mind, our job is to figure out how much can the city afford. And the reason we have committees of citizens is to have input from them on what they feel the community needs and would like. I'm comfortable with supporting the idea of going after $150,000. We would pay 37. I think we're crazy not to get 150,000 when we can pay 37 and most likely fund both of their top projects. Now, the shade over the basketball, I would keep my mouth shut if they were adamant, because that's what the committee is for. But I don't mind telling you or telling the committee members, I think you can play basketball under the sun. But again, that's their decision in my mind. I like the idea of new playground at the Washington Gym because it would be utilized. The people that are playing basketball currently are playing in the sun, and they're not gonna leave because it's still in the sun. I mean.
Well, I think that maybe I misstated on that. I mean, it would be a cover, so you could play in inclement weather, a roof, a pavilion.
Yeah.
But their top priority, the motion was the recommendation for the Washington Gym playground first, and the second option would be the 10th Street. That's what their motion was, for the playground as their first choice, and the 10th Street
And
as
then
the
what
second
funds
choice.
were left, they would spend them at the basketball court or
There
whatever.
was some objection to the Washington playground from the board. We wanted to give you another option, or they wanted to give you another option. But yeah, $150,000 would allow you to put a nice playground, bigger playground, that would, you could get one that would be for a higher age group. I mean, the small one you have there is probably 2 to 10. You could get one that would fit, to 12-year-old or older, larger playground that would incorporate older children with more activities for them. So I think the board would be very happy with $150,000, or the committee would be very happy with $150,000 playground in Washington.
Yeah, I hate to give up the opportunity to turn 37 into 150.
Oh, yeah. And, they didn't fund that program for many years. There was no money available. I think it would be a disservice to the community to not take, the offer from the state of Florida.
Are we applying for 2?
We have 2 now, and we're applying for 1. You can only have 3 operate in one time. 3 going at one time.
What's the will? Do we want a motion for 150 for next? We'll come up with the match next year.
Yeah.
The next year's budget.
Yeah, I'm good with that, the recommendation, and then up to 150.
So we need a
Need
motion.
a motion on that.
Yep, so moved.
Have a motion, need a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any opposition? Hearing none, motion passes 3-0.
But the other big discussion item was what you've just discussed about Core Park and those improvements. And maybe we need to try to put together a plan of what, a little more detail of the improvements that we'd like to see, where we want the bathroom located, splash pad and those kinds of things. Maybe we need to start putting that into a document. And that was another big discussion item by the committee. And then we had one member, we have 9 members on the committee, but we had one member, Mr. Rod Riggle, that said that he'd like to be removed. So he's just not going to be able to participate. And I asked the members that were there to put forth any names that they thought, and one came up with Brenda Fisher as an option for the committee. But there's no, we don't have to do anything today, so we'd ask you all to think about whether we need to replace that one committee member on that committee.
That's pretty encouraging that you have a committee of 9 and one is really not wanting to be involved. So you have a committee of 8 and 5 of those people come to a meeting.
Yes.
I think they're doing a great job.
And then finally, we scheduled a meeting for we're gonna meet the first Monday of each month. So we have our next meeting scheduled for November the 1st at noon at the fire station.
And Mike, you had 2 RFPs on here as well.
Yes.
Okay.
So the 2 current grants we have, a Washington Recreation Complex, outdoor exercise equipment, and the Forest Park, exercise equipment. And those bids came back. And the low bidder was 21,000. Where was it? 22.
On both, Triactive was the lowest.
Yeah, Triactive was the low bidder on both. We would request approval, or ask for approval to go with the low bidder on both of those, pending the receipt of the commencement letter from the state.
One of you like to make that an emotion?
So we haven't received that commencement letter. We've submitted all the documents, but we expect that shortly. Which we're not supposed to make any purchases until after we receive that commencement letter.
That's your recommendation.
That's the recommendation, yes, sir.
Motion to approve based on finance director's recommendation.
Mr. Attorney, we want both of these in one swoop or each?
I would do them separately.
So you want to do the first one then? All
I'll
right.
second.
We have a motion and a second for low bidder Triactive for RFP 2021-09. Any opposition? Motion passes 3-0. Now we need a motion on the second RFP.
So moved. Same motion.
Motion, do we have a second?
Second.
All right. Any opposition? Motion passes 3-0. Next up, we have code enforcement.
Yes, sir. Continuing to move forward with several code enforcement issues, mainly being grass with all the rain that we've had on this. Asking people to please help tidy up around their home. be courteous to their neighbor to help with code enforcement.
Police.
I have, and I think y'all took care of it with policy, but I'll go ahead and do it in this meeting, is, need permission to, buy the radar units on our grant. Our grant was for, I got my notes here. Our grant was for $18,763.50. Ordering 8 radar units, put new radar units in all of our active patrol cars, not the, our reserve units. That cost would be $24,344. It actually went up from when I wrote the grant and got my first quote till time for the grant, and the prices went up kind of like the trucks. We'll spend out of budget $5,580.50, and we had budgeted $18,000 and something dollars, so it's way under our budget.
Yeah, in total, he has 36,000 in total.
Yeah, so we're gonna save a little bit of money this year. Those budgets, we usually do vehicles on this grant, and we're kind of pretty good right now, and I thought it was a good time to buy some equipment on the state's dime. So, spending $5,580 for all of these radar units is pretty good.
Is this gonna leave you anything for license plate readers that you were talking about?
No, this grant, this is like the first year that we haven't used it on vehicles. The cameras that we're using are just not LPRs. That's part of it, but they do a whole lot more. But, eventually, we just come online with those yesterday, and, I think last night, they, observed 6,680 vehicles going down that road, so that's one way, that's only eastbound traffic. So, might as well say about 13,000 vehicles in a 6-hour, 7-hour period last night on 98. I mean, our traffic is just ridiculous now.
Yeah.
Which is good, because I was talking with a developer the other day who called to ask me if we had a traffic count on the city's portion of Highway 98, because they're trying to get some big box stores or big chain stores to come in here, and all of those apparently go on traffic count. How many vehicles are passing their establishment where they're going to build that establishment? So
Is there any way you could tell them that a lot, part of those numbers may have been like locusts or birds, anything but.
we're a changing community, and I think it's, I think every decision that I make is for the future, because in 10 years from now, I may not be here, but somebody's gonna have to deal with this stuff, because we're growing like I've never seen.
Yeah, those numbers are hard to believe. I mean, wow.
Yeah, we're on the thousands of vehicles just on Garrison Avenue every day. So, I mean, that's.
All right, so we just need a motion on this one.
Yes, Commission, this is also a sole source to the.
Yeah, there's also the sole source letter is in there, for the grant. I still had to get bids, so I have bids if y'all want them, but it's from different manufacturers. And this is the manufacturer that we went to the grant on.
I'll entertain a motion.
So maybe Chief's request.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any opposition? Motion passes 3-0.
Thank you, gentlemen. Unless y'all have any questions, that's all I have.
Any questions? Moving right along to the city clerk, grants.
We continue to meet with our grant writers, the Ferguson group, each week. We have 2 meetings this week, one Wednesday, one Friday. We're working diligently to locate funds to help with our opportunities.
All right. Any questions for Ms. Charlotte?
Thank you.
You got it. On to citizens to be heard. Anyone wish to speak today? Come on up.
Just a couple of quick things. Number one, on 13th, once you turn off of Long onto 13th, there have been a pile of televisions, etc. I've sent pictures to the city. It's still sitting there. And there's grass and tires all growing up around it. And I'm just wondering, it's been there for well over a year. So I'm wondering, when will that be removed?
Jim, do you know anything about code enforcement receiving that information?
We sent several letters to both neighbors on there. They mowed some grass, but they've not taken care of the pile. We're probably to the point where we just need to pick it up and say so.
I was just gonna ask, have we gone through the special master process? And if so, we just need to put a lien if we need to for, I don't know how much trash it's gonna be.
These haven't went to special, every time we get close to going to a special master, they'll do a little bit of work on the property. But I know what Ms. McElroy's talking about. We'll just pick it up and assess the property.
It's just horrible.
Okay.
And
Yes,
then, talking about, roads and everything, what you said, Chief, about how many people, we're noticing on our road an increase in truck traffic, like dump trucks on Woodward Avenue. And it's creating, problems with the road. I don't think that's what that road's really designed for, to have a bunch of dump trucks or construction trucks that utilize that road so that they don't have to get on 98 and come up the normal way. But you can see them. They come down 71 from, the Tallahassee area, whatever, Weewalt area, and they cut straight down Woodward Avenue. And we just, we need some help with our roads because it's just gotten ridiculous.
Yeah, Woodward and Marvin, and a lot of those are terrible. We don't have anything against through traffic for trucks. There's nothing posted for that, is there?
We have several signs. I'll let Chief elaborate. It's one of those things that you have, a lot of streets have signs. It's hard to police, I would imagine.
Well, I know Garrison's like a bypass through town now, but
Unless you stop the truck and ask them exactly where you're going to, it's kind of hard. Are you going on Garrison Avenue, or are you gonna cut through to go to Appalachia?
Yeah. Well,
If you see the same truck on a regular basis on there, I'm sure the chief can.
it's a lot of those big, they're pulling dirt out of the big dirt pit,
okay.
and they're just, they're cutting down because they don't want to get hung up on 98. And so, that road is one of the many cut downs, but it's getting a lot of heavy traffic, and traffic that's pretty, I'd say high speed for a little neighborhood like that.
Well, if they're not supposed to be there, Chief has 8 new toys. He can definitely be out on the road policing that.
Thank you, Chief.
Yes, ma'am, thank you. Anybody else? Come on up, sir. Oh, ladies first.
That's right. I was just wondering how are we getting the word out about Amnesty Day on the 23rd, is my understanding, but I don't know if anyone else knows that.
How has it been advertised, Jim?
I think we actually have it on our website on there, but yeah, thanks for reminding us. So, yes, it is I think it's the 25th. It's on
October 23rd from 8 to 4.
Saturday. It's right at the courthouse, yeah. Mainly oils, those type of things on there, materials on there that you can't normally carry to the landfill. But check out the list on there, but there is a flyer, I believe, we put it on our website.
Yeah, I've got one here as well, ma'am, if you want to take one. I'll
Okay,
bring it over to you.
thank you.
Yes, ma'am. All right, Mr. Fields, you're up.
I just want to bring up about the roads again on Avenue C and Avenue D. They are terrible. Okay, now Avenue C, well, last time I was informed that it wasn't any money to fix those roads. Something definitely needs to be done. Something, because when you drive, you have to drive on the wrong side of the road to dodge a spot. You have to go this way to dodge a spot. Coming down Avenue C the other day, I didn't know whether the guy was gonna go this way, that way, because the way the hole is, that happened immediately after the work was done. That's gonna cause a problem, especially if you get a late night hour and somebody decide just shoot through there. They're gonna have to make a decision on Avenue C. but something need to be done. Maybe the city and the county can come together, make a deal with C.W. Roberts to pave at least 100 yards on Avenue C and 100 yards on Avenue D in those areas. That will solve that problem, plus a major problem on Avenue D, which has been there, I know, 10 years. It's just all the way caved all the way down, and it's just steady sinking. And the problem just gets worse as you go unless something is done. Something need to be done on those two streets there.
But I think, Mr. Fields, most of that was faulty utilities. Am I wrong there? And that caused the sinkholes?
Construction.
Yeah,
No, it was construction is what it was, right?
it really was, okay.
Mhm.
Is there any plan?
We have applied for a grant. It may be a situation where we have to do something sooner than later on there, depending on where the grant status is. But we do have a CDBG grant that's in that we have applied for. When we applied for that one,
A couple weeks ago, yeah, C&D
So
specifically.
I would assume we're probably going to hear something back probably within 6 weeks on there. At that point, this board needs to make a decision.
Can we use cold pack on the bad spots? Or is that not a good product?
What Mr. Fielder, there's too many. That's the problem we have right now,
Too
yeah.
many.
It really does need to be milled down and
It does.
repaved.
It needs to be fixed, and that's one that we have circled at the staff level as well. So our thinking was, let's see where we're at with this CDBG grant. It can give us some timing on there. We'll come back to the board and say, okay, do we want to tackle this now? Or
I'm assuming y'all got an estimate on,
I don't know that Dewberry has. No, he has. I
It
take
is,
that
it's
back.
in
He
that
has.
grant.
Yes, he has.
Sure
I'm
is.
sorry.
We did, yeah.
He has.
we had to turn that in with that CDBG, so yes, there is some numbers in there.
But while we were looking at these roads as well, we were also looking ahead at the $10 million grant we received for sewer rehabs.
Right.
And where those need to be applied to, Marvin Avenue, Woodward, McClellan. So, as we said, it's gonna go from here to here. It's gonna change because we know we've got areas worse than others. And so we're gonna have to make that decision and bring it to you for that decision when we get to that point.
But C&D was included in there. What we can do is we can go back and pull those numbers, be looking at them. That way we can get an idea of what we will be looking at.
Was any of the problem that we're faced with now, I rode down those streets Sunday and had forgotten just how bad they were, and they quickly reminded me. Are we blaming any of this on ourselves or on the contractor that did the work, or was it an oversight? Because if I hear that the contractor should have done the work in a different manner and it wouldn't have caused it, then I'm willing to strike that company. I don't even know who it is that did it. You said CR, whoever, but, we can use some leverage on that company if we feel like they did a inadequate job, and call them in and just say, hey, if you want to bid for the city, you got to fix this.
Well, I don't think it was one person's fault. Now, while we tend to agree at a staff level at least that the company that did the work most likely wouldn't be invited back to the city of Fort St. Joe to do future work, I think it was a culmination of the contractor, Dewberry, the project and the process in general, when it changed midstream and went from a CIPP to a pipe bursting job. And that's where your root cause for most of the damage you see was at. So it's to put blame on one person, Commissioner, I couldn't do that.
Okay, and that's fair enough. I just know that over the last 10 years or so, the city of St. Joe has spent a lot of money. And we paved part of Garrison as the first part of Garrison. And we already have problems there, right? 4 years ago, when I got involved in the commission, the discussion was, what can we do to this group? Because they had problems. And then we paved, this end of Garrison. And I think the city's doing a much, much better job in identifying problems under the ground and fixing those problems. That's why Long Avenue is going to be in the tens of millions of dollars before we're done, because all our pipes are old and have to be replaced. You can't just pave it on some of that foundation underneath the pavement. So I just want to make sure we're picking companies and engineers and the experts to do it right. And I think this is an example of, we didn't really do our due diligence to be prepared for the problems that we may find.
It was a great example, Commissioner. It also, opened up a lot of different avenues and doors to the Long Avenue project as well. So it was, not only for staff, but more so for the engineers, because of problems that were encountered during that. So absolutely.
Looking at sewer's problematic to begin with. It's deep, it's mainly in the middle of our roads. But we started looking at the CIPP and we started looking at, we're introduced to pipe bursting. These are some of these newer techniques that potentially could save money, but at the same time, they can cause potential problems in there. And me and Mr. Grantland found that out with these newer techniques that these people are trying to test on us. Luckily, it's a small test area in there, but we found out they can be problematic too.
And one of the root causes, Eddie, for Avenue C and D was when the pipe bursting took place, back in 1932, when they installed the sewer. They laid planks of wood.
Right.
They milled them on site, and they're actually 2 inches by, 10. Well, when the new pipe comes on top of that, it has nowhere to go. It can't go down. So where does it go? There you go. So these are all things that were unforeseen conditions at the time that we've learned, unfortunately.
That was a comment I wanted to add, because I remember C&D being done years ago, and some of the toxic and stuff that was done from the paper mill was the ground base for those pipes. So right now, anything you do new to them, if you go deep enough, you're gonna find soft sand, stuff that's not solid enough. So when you said who to blame, sometimes our history shows that we didn't do it right from the beginning. And I remember when we talked about the road being, when the sewer's gonna be redone, I mentioned then about peeling back some of that so that they would put new asphalt on, because I know in this area, anytime you patch, it's gonna sink over time. And so those roads become bumpy roads. And that's just what's happening over there on C&D right now. And a lot of it is based upon when they dug that road up, you could see some of the old stuff that's soft, wood.
And that's a good point, Chester. I mean, C, D, Long Avenue, we've got so many streets in town that historically in the past, the city paved. No one decided to mill those down to where they should be. I mean, Long Avenue, for example, it's a foot thick. It's 12 inches thick of asphalt, so just layered over the years. C and D are the same, so, you have to bring that down for positive drainage for a lot of different issues.
One question I have is on Long, are they gonna go in and, do they crush that pipe?
Long Avenue is slated for more of a CIPP process, so it's a cure-in-place plastic. So what they'll do is they'll utilize the existing sewer mains, but they'll actually pull through a sleeve, which is blown up and cured in place. It turns into a PVC inside of the clay, so exactly. Then all the laterals get replaced, which are also failure points that we see, coming off from the house to the middle of it. So that's the idea. It's the least expensive way to rehab a sewer system with CIPP, and just, it goes up from there to pipe bursting to full replacement.
I was asked that, and I'm curious about it.
Anyone else from the public? Come on up. Just make sure you sign in and state your name.
Hi. Hi, how you guys doing?
Good.
Okay, I feel like that's much better. My name is Jonathan. I'm with Vitas Hospice. I was wondering if Port St. Joe was going to have any type of medical events or anything of that to inform the public of anything like hospice services or just anything medical, like wishes or anything like that?
The city typically doesn't, but our health department, if you talk with Sarah, I can't think of her last name, it's not Hines anymore. Yes, Sarah from the health department or Brittany Harrington would be the person to talk to about that. And they're right here in town, they're golf in Franklin County.
Okay, perfect.
Generally, what we do is we kind of partner up. A lot of times what we've allowed is we allow the use of the city facility at Centennialville, a large enough facility for several different partners to come in to have exhibits and those type of things for different folks to showcase medical. We've had it in the past where we've had all kind of different things in there for people to come in and check, blood pressure, even COVID tests that we've been done in there and vaccines. So if you got something in mind that you would like to see done, I think Commissioner Ashbrook's correct. Work with the health department, see if you can partner up and we'll make the facility available.
Yeah, of course, thank you. I just want to make sure that the public and other people know that about hospice services, what that entails, and make sure they're informed, because the more they're informed, the more quality of care they're able to perceive and able to get as well.
Absolutely, and we'll cooperate all that we can with space and helping you, but we don't have the instructors.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
If you also have a flyer or something that you would like for us to distribute out about your services on there, I think it will work.
Anyone else from the public? All right, we'll start with Commissioner Hoffman.
I have just a couple of things, while we're talking about pipes and roads and all those things. I'd like to, I want to make sure we, for one, put this on our list of projects. We have a pipe, it's probably one of the biggest stormwater pipes in the city, and it comes from the ditch, which some people refer to as Depot Creek Ditch, and it comes and travels alongside of 20th Street to Buck Griffin Lake. And it's either one huge pipe or two. It is two. And I keep hearing discussion about, well, we don't know if it's our responsibility or the county's responsibility, but I'm just going to say, being it's in the city, I'm going to imply from now on it's the city's responsibility, because we've had issues with the pipe, I guess, is leaking right across the street from Faith Christian School. And the person that lives on the corner there has noticed a cave in at least twice. And one time his truck was actually down in the hole. And he has asked, and I don't think it's too big of an ask, for us to fix the problem. If we don't fix the problem, and it does have a full blowout, I believe that it would be fair to say there would be a possibility of flooding the entire Faith Christian School and church, flooding that house on the corner, and flooding the house straight in front of him. And there's another small church there at Marvin and 20th. It would definitely flood that one because it's downhill toward the lake. We need to get it fixed. I realize we don't have equipment that can dig the hole deep enough to get down to where the pipe is. Then we need to rent it. And we need to go out for bids and look at this problem and fix the issue instead of worrying about, can we get the county to do this, or can we get equipment from the county? I'm past that. We need to fix it. So
Well, we did do that, Commissioner.
we can.
No, we did go off the pricing. After that last failure when it opened up,
Yeah.
we backfilled it, and it hasn't opened up since, and that's been 8 months. But when we did do that, the prices were $25,000 and $18,000 respectively.
Yeah.
For a contractor to come in, de-water, set trench boxes, because, and then really, we don't know where the leak is at, because it's RCP pipe. We don't know if it's on top, on the side, or on the bottom. If it's on the bottom, there's no way to fix it except from inside, which is gonna get even more expensive, so
Can we send the camera through it like we did on a lot of places?
it's too much water. And we'd have to dam it off somehow to be able to do that. Now, man, that's possible we could get that done. I don't know the cost,
Yeah.
but we could do that.
Well, my train of thought is we can either ignore it and hope that we never have a full blowout of the pipe. And that's what we've been doing for many, many, many years now. And the fact that we've had 2 cave-ins at one spot leads me to believe we have a problem at that one spot. And I realize we dug a hole and we dumped a bunch of filler in the hole, but that doesn't fix the leak that caused the cave-in. And that's what I think we need to focus on in the coming months. There may be some grant money out there. I do know that to rent an excavator large enough to do the project, just to dig the hole, is pretty much $4,000 for like a day and a half, or $16,000 for a week.
We'll need way more than that though, because again, dewatering is gonna be crucial because of all the groundwater needs. It's
Yeah.
almost 12 foot deep.
Yep.
You know,
Well, and it
so-
brings the discussion right back to what I've been saying now for a couple years. We should never be receiving that water in the first place. We're literally bringing water by the millions of gallons from the river system of Apalachicola River, the tributaries, Depot Creek being one of them. We're bringing it into the city from the county, and it's going into our lake, and then it's going into the bay. Until we figure out how to move that water back to where it used to go, and that's money by and that would be millions of dollars. But until we do that, we need to fix the pipe. So that's where I'm at on that. The next thing I have is the Chamber of Commerce had sent a letter, pretty much just saying, hey, can the city of St. Joe make a contribution and put us maybe on the list? I know we have a list of nonprofits that we make a yearly contribution to, the library, the Humane Society, among others. I think it's a fair request to support the chamber. I know this year they were gracious enough to actually take on the Halloween event, what's it called? Ghost on the Coast. You know, they stepped right in, and they're gonna be taking that event away from the city to help with the city and the COVID issue. So I think it's time that the city consider adding them to the nonprofit group. However, that's done. We can discuss it at a later time.
They're on the list.
Yeah, I thought they were.
What are we
added
getting?
$3,000 this
Well, maybe they don't understand that we're
Yeah.
giving them some money now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we did take them off the list.
Oh, they were all?
They were on the list, and then we took them off the list, and it's been some time.
Okay.
But we did put $3,000 in this budget, yes, sir.
Okay, just, I'll follow up with them and make sure they are aware that we should be giving them something. But I heard somebody say, Eddie brought up the flag at the cemetery. I had the opportunity to speak to the Boy Scout troop, which I think you have connections there. And I asked them, I said, would y'all like to champion and partner with the city and kind of be responsible for keeping the city in line with our flags? And you know, everybody's busy. Everybody does things. I'll look at a flag sometimes down at the boat landing and think, man, that's terrible. And then I forget about it. So they have agreed to help and assist the city, not only with identifying flags that should be replaced, but they work with the VFW, and they get the flags from them. And then they take care of the process of destroying the flag the way that it's supposed to be. So that, I guess they will come before the city or we can write some MOU with them and if the others support the idea, but I think it's something we need to do. That's all I have.
All right, Brett Tripp.
Only thing I've got, Jim, will you just reach out to BCC and make sure they're doing roadside debris like they should be? Because I'm getting some calls on that. I mean, it seems like this happens every couple months. They just start slacking a little bit.
Yeah, it's not just that either. It's dumpsters too. We've had a couple dumpsters sit for 2 weeks without a single pickup at the hotel, so that's kind of strange. All right.
Which I also see there's some stuff on the side of the road where people have cut down trees that contractors put, a pile of stuff out there, and it's wouldn't be their responsibility to pick that up. They should haul that off. But.
All right, okay.
Yep.
All right, all I've got is, I just wanted to let you guys know that I've been working with the attorney on that food truck ordinance. And I just wanted to run some of the points by you so we're not chasing something that wouldn't pass in the future. But as long as the parcel is commercially zoned and privately owned, and the food truck is registered in Gulf County and has a city business license, there'll be two options. You can do the permanent where you take it off the wheels, put sides around it and make it withstand a Cat 5 hurricane, or the state statute addresses temporary food trucks, which allows them to be there for no more than 6 months without having to move for 30 days. So statute handles that for us. And if it is permanent, they have to conform to LDR standards. The one piece of language that's really prohibiting people from doing this now is that the food truck must be attached to the main business, and that's what's causing some issues now. So we're gonna have to change that language. And they must provide socially distanced outdoor seating and provide parking for those seats. So they have to make sure that they have parking for whatever seats they have outside as well. And they must be connected to city utilities via Quick Connect as well. So we're making tap fees and water and sewer off of those businesses as well. And that's kind of the direction that I'm heading. If y'all have any thoughts.
What do you mean by it has to be attached to the same business?
Well, and with full disclosure, I've brought this up because we're trying to put a food truck at Taproot. So I won't be able to vote on this, but if we were to attach it to the building, we could have had it done already. But we have a stage there. We want to move it to the other side. And a food truck is considered an auxiliary structure, and it can't be a standalone. You know, it can't be by itself. It has to be attached to a main building. So we have to change that language just so we can put one out there.
And be completely separate?
Be completely separate, yeah. But my whole thought was, I just don't want people from other counties coming in, making a bunch of tax dollars and bringing it back to Bay County. So I want the business to be a local registered business if they want to have one here. So the tax money stays in town.
And just so you'll know, I will also not be voting on a food truck issue. My brother owns a small hot dog stand in Bay County and was here for the Scallop Festival. And I still have a very, very small interest in the business. Just for full disclosure, I'll stay out of the food truck ordinance because of that reason.
All right. And that is all I have. If there's nothing else, this meeting will be adjourned.
I did.